Welcome back, fellow American Horror Story fanatics. We are back trying to recap episode 6 because last night we had some serious technical difficulties. I'm not quite sure if it was Russia or if it was some kind of crazy just hack scandal nationwide, but here we go again. We're trying. We are back with The Creep on American Horror Story, My Roanoke Nightmare. We are opening up strong, and we knew this episode was going to be great. It was hyped up so much by Ryan Murphy on Twitter, and there was just so many theories flying around. We open up right with Cheyenne Jackson, this great preview that we got from after last week's episode, going and doing this reality TV thing where he's meeting with this boardroom of people, and they're basically talking about the success of My Roanoke Nightmare, which is basically a big show. It was not real. So the
it was a
ratings
reality show that surpassed The Walking Dead and surpassed all of these other shows, and he's trying to take that and run with it because as we're introduced to this guy, I'm going to say it now, this guy's a dick, and I hate him. But
yeah, he's definitely
as his character develops, you know that he is only after money and ratings. That is what this guy is after.
Pretty much, but we really do open up strong with finding out that, of course, everything that we've been watching has been all kind of just a big TV charade, and they even prove it by saying right in the beginning of the episode that it beat out Sunday Night Football and The Walking Dead and all these other shows, and basically that it gotten like a very religious following. We're talking like 25 plus million viewers of this show, so it became a huge hit. So basically, he's here at the board trying to pitch a new idea for the second season of Roanoke. He's like, okay, well, we've had this, but now let's picture this. Let's bring all the actors and the people who originally were telling the story, so their personas, but also the actors that were playing them, and put them in this house. And it's an unusual idea because we're thinking to ourselves, like, well, what really is that going to do? Because we have been throwing this big stake about how it's not real. So what the hell is the point of putting all these people in this house if it really is just bullshit?
It's like an American Horror Story Big Brother, and he wants them to fight. He wants them to have a sort of tension. He wants drama, which drama equals ratings. And this is what his whole game plan is.
Well, he's definitely pitching the idea, and he's got that persona, he's got that energy, he's got that Rico Suave to really pitch this idea to the board, and they're starting to eat it up, but they're kind of feeding him some negative feedback about how everybody was pissed at the finale because we didn't find out who ended up killing Mason, who was Lee's husband, and they were kind of pissed because they actually all believed that it was Lee who ended up actually killing Mason and charring him and pretty much blaming it on these Roanoke ghosts. So, which further kind of goes into the mind fuck, because if it was fake, then what the hell did a real person ended up dying for? So I was kind of thinking about this today, but it really does get to be kind of a really big brain twister. So we see Sydney, the guy who's pitching the idea to the board, leave the room, and there's his assistant Diana, who had been caught in traffic, and she shows up. And he's like, guess what? We got the approval. We're going to have 13 episodes. She's like, well, you might have to give him back because Shelby, Lily Ray, wants absolutely nothing to do with the show.
Shelby bailed, supposedly. She doesn't want anything to do with the show. And they really don't elaborate on that too much. And the next, scene that we go to is actually Shelby in the chair talking to Sydney. They've got this camera crew. It's her first interview since doing My Roanoke Nightmare. And she's there giving her tale, and she's pretty much saying, I want to come back to the show for the sole purpose of reconnecting with Matt. We find out they're separated. She and Matt separated. They were going to do the show to, I guess, hash it out and try to leave it behind them. And it actually just brought up bad memories. And, of course, it was a very traumatic event for them. So reliving it instead of healing them and helping them reconcile everything that they had been through, it tore them apart even further to go back through that traumatic event.
And it got even worse when we find out that as Dominic was interviewing her, or not Dominic, excuse me, Sydney was interviewing her, we find out that Shelby actually ended up having an affair or a weekend stint with Dominic, who was Cuba Gooding Jr., the one who was playing her husband, Matt. And it like got all big on the paparazzi. And she, at this point, is basically kind of breaking down in the interview and saying like, okay, that's enough. Let's stop. But of course, Sydney, being the douchebag that he is, that just is a soul-sucking piece of crap, leaves the cameras running, of course, just to make sure that we can get every bit of drama coming out of her. And we come to realize that you're right. She does actually want to do the show just as an opportunity to go back and try and reconcile with Matt, because she really does actually have a lot of remorse for what she did with Dominic, basically going to this Matt knockoff and having a weekend fling with him.
She called him a cheap substitution. She said she was lonely. She was out of her mind. At this point, Matt wasn't even speaking to her. So she said that she pretty much went crazy and just needed some kind of comfort. So she went for the cheap imitation that Dominic Banks, Cuba Gooding Jr. was.
So she does agree to end up doing the show, and that's where she says, if we're going to do it, then Dominic can't be there. And of course, Sydney, being the fucking vampire that he is for the ratings and the money, he says, oh yeah, he won't be there. And then the cameras following them, shows Diana talking to Sydney about him being closed in the cast. And Sydney says, okay, we make sure that Dominic is there. So we know for a fact that he really does not give a damn about Shelby, her feelings, or whatever it takes with her marriage. She's going to make sure that he's going to stir up a big shitstorm in the house as soon as Dominic shows up.
Oh, that's what he wants. That's what he wants because it's ratings. That's all he cares about. I really hate this guy.
Well, that was 10 weeks before the whole thing was starting, and this whole program that he pitched to the board. And now we jump forward 8 weeks ahead. Now we're down to 2 weeks, and we're seeing them in the original Roanoke Nightmare house. And we're with a special effects guy where he's talking about
special effects guy.
He's cool as shit.
My
this guy is
favorite right
awesome.
now.
He's definitely a cool cat, and he's showing them all these like basic little scares. And they gradually move up to where we're talking about like the drawers being thrust out of their freaking housings.
And the sink explodes, and then the fireplace just whoosh.
Throws the fireball out.
Fire at that point. That would have made the show. Sydney's on fire. He dies. The end.
Cool shit though. But I mean, amidst this like revelry and their wonderful makings of this great follow up to Roanoke Nightmare, somebody comes in and is like, "Hey, what's going on? There's something that happened out here. You got to see this." And of course, Matt is feeding into it, and they're ending up going outside, and there's something pretty creepy out there. Just as they're going out to see this, they actually notice that Mr. Special Effects guy has a new video, basically the new Dennis O'Hare, Mr. Dr. Elias there, who was scaring people with his video about how he won't stay in the house, he's staying in the bunker, and yada, yada, yada.
So it's a guy we've never seen before. This is the first time we've seen it. We don't know if this video is fabricated for the show, if it's something they're found. Probably fabricated for the show. It's just, it looks like, what's his name? Captain Spaulding. That's who it looks like.
He does kind of look like Captain Spaulding.
He does, which I love him
Not
too.
him, of course, but that would be cool if it was.
But yeah, and then Sydney and Diana, the casting director and the co-producer, she's saying, I don't know about this. She's very unsure. They're kind of arguing about it. She's like, all these jump scares are going to look fake. And then they're interrupted miraculously. Thank you. Because that was boring, obviously. Something's going on outside, and they go outside, and there are these production trailers where the stars and the production crew would live in or live on site. And he says they shouldn't be here. This should be a totally immersive experience. So we need to get this. We need to get this out of here. He said, move those like half a mile down the road, hide them in the woods. Then they're interrupted again by one of the production crew saying, hey, come here, look at this. There's a big stump over here. Come look at this, please. And they're running. They're running to.
I jumped the gun on this one. I did. But yeah,
Oh yeah, it's fine. But what we see next is a circle of fetal pigs, very bloody, very maggoty. They're full of maggots, which is like the worst thing ever. And Elvis brought up a really good point that he thought maybe that was symbolic.
It looks a lot like the blood moon. It was in a circular fashion. It was bloody, and it was pretty nasty. And you know what's funny is that as we kind of look at this and we may actually draw that comparison, this is where we see Sydney suddenly actually sitting down with the Butcher's actress, who is Kathy Bates, but she's known as Agnes. Agnes Winstead, I think, was her name. And we're talking with her about how she absolutely adores this role. It was like her big thing, her role of a lifetime. And
she became so obsessed with it, and she even said, I have a, quote, connection with it, and she was honored to bring a breath of life to the character. That's pretty strong words. I mean, that's like Aragorn and Lord of the Rings strong. Very, very submersed in this character. She actually becomes pretty obsessed with it.
What I think was kind of cool about this, not to interrupt, but when they were showing the other people that were doing the casting audition for the Butcher, the second person that I think they showed, I think that was Amazon Eve in a different form from American Horror Story Freak Show. I think I think that might have been Amazon
Eve.
Eve.
Her so much.
It did really look like her. But I mean, they start talking more and more about Agnes and her in-depth role with the Butcher and how she kind of really like got really into the mind of this role. And here's what's funny about this, not to get too off track. When Sydney first shows up and is interviewing Agnes about the role of the Butcher, he's seeming very kind, very nice, very happy-go-lucky, cavalier about the whole thing. And he starts talking about how Agnes might have gotten slightly affected by this. We start hearing him about saying it took a toll on you. And we hear him say about you stealing props from the actual like show. And we see like a pig's head, a dagger, which was actually Lady Gaga, the witch. Scavenge. That was her dagger that she held against Cricket's throat there. And also we see the hatchet that the Butcher was carrying, and also this little awesome Pop Funko bobblehead of the Butcher. But then we flash back. We flash to seeing Sydney making reference to her breakdown, where she is dressed in colonial garb. Can we
pause for a second? Because the thing I wanted to talk about, let's pause just for a second before we get too far ahead. And I did touch base on this thoroughly last night when we did the podcast. I hate you guys didn't miss it. Thanks, hackers, and fuck you, hackers. But anyway, so Agnes is quoted as saying there are only, to the point of there are only two great roles that have ever been played. She herself said the Butcher, herself as the Butcher, and she also mentioned Mary Tyrone. Now, a lot of people on the internet have been blowing this up since even last night. I read briefly about it the night before, right before it was Thursday when we started to prepare for the podcast. Right now, there is no one cast that we know of for the real portrayal of the Butcher. Who is the Butcher? A lot of people are saying that Jessica Lange is going to come back.
That would definitely be a shocker, because Jessica Lange also said that way back in Freak Show, that was her final portrayal when she played, what was her name? Elsa Mars. Elsa Mars.
But everybody also said that Jon Snow was dead and he wasn't coming back. So people lie, newsflash, whatever. So right now, well, actually back in the year 2000, Jessica Lange opened a Broadway show called Long Day's Journey into Night, which Miss Agnes here refers to as the other great role that has been portrayed, Long Day's Journey. She does paraphrase it. But right now, as of the early spring to now, Jessica Lange has been on Broadway portraying this morphine-riddled woman in Long Day's Journey into Night. I don't know if that was a nod out of respect, saying, hey, this is Jessica Lange's character. I mean, everything happens. Every reference is for purpose. They're not just saying this all wimbly nimbly, you know, there's Jessica Lange, blah, blah, blah. Her role. They knew they were going to have her, you know, say this.
American Horror Story is known for its subtle shout outs here and there.
Yes.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
But let's get back to it.
So it's either a nod or to Jessica Lange, or maybe she's coming back in this season. I hope she does. You said earlier you don't care for her for any of the characters that she has portrayed so far.
I just feel like she tries to steal the spotlight. That's my personal opinion. Everybody's got one. But I'm just saying that I think Jessica, when it comes to her being cast, ends up like stealing the spotlight in a lot of instances.
She steals spotlight because she's amazing.
Well, in all honesty, my own personal opinion, I think the only season that I really enjoyed her role was when she was Sister Jude in American Horror Story Asylum.
And you loved her at the end of Asylum.
That was the only time I did. But anyways, let's get back to it.
Because you were meant to. You're meant to hate her character, and that's why she's so awesome, is because she portrays a mean-ass nun, and Elsa Mars, the manipulative circus freak show manager leader lady, and you're supposed to hate her roles, and she plays the villain so deliciously. And Coven, I felt bad for her at the end of Coven, which I love Coven.
I had no love for her at the end of Coven. After all the shit that she did, I was like, no love for her.
Stop with the Axeman. Is this Naughty Pine? Oh my God, if I had to live in a house with Naughty Pine.
Okay. Let's get back to Roanoke before we get too long into it. All right, let's start back up again. We're still actually talking about Agnes, and we're still talking about her mental breakdown and how she ended up actually doing 6 months in a mental facility because she actually did attack somebody with a hatchet with her whole I'm the Butcher walk down the Hollywood star walk of fame. And she's basically saying that I'm a lot better now. I'm medicated. I'm level. I'm good. But Sydney is starting to poke holes in what's been happening and how the fact that she became obsessed with this role big time. And then we finally see the props. And we really do see that she has stolen a lot of stuff from this set and how she became obsessed with this role. So her whole role of a lifetime became like a whole new personality for herself. And with some actors, I mean, if you look back at Jack Nicholson for reference, if you ever go to Jack Nicholson and say, do you know who you really are? In an interview that he had, he said, I don't even know who the hell I am anymore. I've played so many roles, I don't know who Jack Nicholson is anymore.
And that could also be just Jack Nicholson portraying another character saying he doesn't know who he
when a cop walks into the room and serves her these papers, and he says, we have a restraining order against you. You are not allowed anywhere near the show. He basically says, you can't do it.
She's saying, you can call my doctors. I've got papers. I got this. I got that. But actually, what Sydney is doing right now, being the dick that he is, Sydney, he's fueling her fire. He knows her weakness, or she was diagnosed with psychoaffective disorder, which means that she can slip in and out of another personality without realizing it. So he's exploiting that. He is trying to bring that out of her for ratings.
Well, we see that too. He does actually strike a nerve. And as they're walking away, we see her run out of her apartment. The fact that she moved to North Carolina after this whole role too, we actually skipped over that. But she did. She moved from Los Angeles all the way across the country just to be closer, like within 4 miles of when they shot this thing. And she jumps out of her apartment and she starts in like butcher, Jesus. What's that word I'm looking
Straight on
for?
butcher colonial mode, psycho crazy bitch.
Accent. The accent. She really totally ran with the accent, and she came running out of her
She's trying really
apartment.
hard to do like a Scottish accent because that's originally where they hailed from, and it's not bad.
Yeah,
She's
it's
great
kind of
actress.
Irish-ish.
It's Scottish-ish. Scottish-ish.
Well, I don't know about 18th century Roanoke, so you could be right, I could be wrong. But
You mean you weren't there?
no, I wasn't there. But we end up flashing forward now, and now we're seeing Lee, the original Lee, talking with another E! News lady, and she's basically talking about how Roanoke portrayed her as a murderer and how she's coming back to do the follow-up season. And basically it's just a video that Matt is watching with his boardroom cats again and talking about how we're going to try and see if we can get Lee to confess to murder on live TV, which is really his whole meaning behind this new season.
Yeah, we learned that that's his whole, he wants to be the guy to nab Lee, and he's talking with his lawyer saying, well, if she's a murderer, which he believes that she is, what if she kills again? What's her liability on that? Lawyer's like, you're good. Don't worry about it.
As long as they do not provide her alcohol, because she has been in and out of alcohol treatment. If they were to provide her alcohol, then they would be at fault.
And that's the character that's playing Lee, not Lee herself, because Lee, the real Lee, was an alcoholic, and she had to. That's why she lost her daughter's Flora. So now the actor Monet, Angela Bassett's character, is portraying Lee, and she's an alcoholic, so they can't give her alcohol under legal contract, or they can get in trouble.
Well, that's not really the whole topical peaking point of this episode thus far. As a matter of fact,
No,
we
it's
hear
not.
people come in and say, you need to come to the set right now. They get there and they see this body being gurneyed away, and then they're watching this video on an iPad of the effects guy, and then in the background we see a guy with a chainsaw cutting wood, and all of a sudden out of nowhere the chainsaw goes like straight up against his throat, and he ends up hacking his own head off. Like, it's almost like an unforeseen force whipped the chainsaw up and like chopped his head off with this chainsaw. So as we're seeing the gurney roll by in the beginning, before we see this, we see like a basketball-sized thing, like kind of riding the gurney, being strapped down with the body.
Can I show a screenshot? Would that work? Because I still framed it in the perfect moment. I don't know if you guys can see this. There you go. Yep, there's the gurney, and you see a little lump. That's the head on top, and you can't really see the caption, but it says whispers, shit. Yep, that's a bad call. That sucks.
Well, anyways, Sydney, being the douchebag that he is basically thinking, okay, well, the show's been ruined, the production's been ruined. So he goes over to the union rep, who shows up with the craziness, and he's like, well, what are we going to do now? Are you going to shut us down? And she's like, well, no, don't worry about it. We would normally give the cast a day off, but it's your call. He's like, well, screw it. Let's go for it anyways.
Well,
and
she
Diana,
doesn't worry about it. She's very vehement that they take time off.
Well, Diana, the assistant, is pissed.
Go on.
Diana, the assistant, is very pissed because one of the crew member died, and Sydney's just like shrugging it off like nothing ever even happened. And Diana's like, well, screw this. I'm out of here.
She saw what happened on the iPad. It wasn't just, oh, there's a chainsaw, I don't know how to use it. It was the chainsaw, and then it flipped on the guy, and he got, just, ugh. So he tries to tell her that she's delusional, and she doesn't know what she's seeing. She knows what she saw, and she said, F you, I'm out, bye, and gets in her badass car, nice car, and drives off, leaving him in a cloud of dust, proceeds to talk about her experience via her car cam. She's got like a GoPro or something, like a dash cam in her car, and she's saying, I know he's going to label me as crazy, he's going to label me as this, I just want documentation of what really happened.
And what's crazy is she's speeding off and she's documenting all this stuff about how she's trying to, get away from this whole thing. She stops suddenly and she looks forward, scared as hell, and she sees something. And she turns her dash cam around, and what she sees is like a Roanoke County figure in the distance, like all dirtied up.
So creepy.
And she's like, well, screw this. I'm not going to find out who the fuck this person is. She backs off and starts hauling ass out of there. And then all of a sudden, Piggy Man behind her and the car crashes. And that's where the text comes across that says, footage from Diana Cross's camera was found 3 months later by the police officers. Her body was never found. So now we're starting to get in some serious craziness. Like, because this is supposedly the real world.
About damn time.
But we end up going, after that little quick commercial break, we come back and we see Sarah Paulson's character, Audrey, who was
Audrey
playing
Tyndale.
Shelby. And she is in this like booth talking, doing the reality TV thing with her personal interview.
The confessional. And she's so cute. She's so proper. It's so annoying. It's so annoying how posh and proper she is. But I love
people make fun of me because I have an English accent.
I got an English accent. Oh no. Oh fuck, I fell down. Oh shit. Oh help me. And then Evan Peters, they're actually walking through the catacombs that are underneath the house, and she falls down. And this is cute. And he's, oh shit, are you okay? She's like, yeah, I'm okay. Help me up. And he's like, I really like your accent. You want to go out for tea? You want to go out for coffee?
Evan is like hitting on her. If she like takes a stumble and they turn the lights on, Evan is like totally hitting on her. He's like, yeah, let's go out and maybe have dinner sometime. Whatever, it could be cool. I am playing an 18th century dead guy after all, so we don't really have to worry about the age bracket.
Asking her out in that powdered wig. That's a brave man.
But we end up seeing Audrey doing her thing, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Rory, who is the guy who plays Edward Mott, who we know as Evan Peters. This is getting really fucking confusing at this point. But he jumps into the booth, and he's like, hey, guess what? We got hitched. In his own, like, crazy Cockney accent. And it's kind of cute in a way, because we see Sarah Paulson, who we know in real life is actually a very open lesbian. And she's making out with Evan Peters, but he kind of
she might not be lesbian. She just might have a woman partner. We don't really know all the details on that, but whatever. She has a cute lisp, and her and Evan Peters, his character, Rory, they are together, and then they have this wedding scene, which is absolutely gorgeous. One of the most enjoyable parts of the episode is seeing them get married.
I have to cut in. If anybody was actually paying attention very closely, if they noticed the preacher who was marrying them, the guy with the glasses and the beard, if you look very, very closely and you've been watching the episodes very religiously the way that all of us American Horror Story fucking fanatics do, you have to realize that the guy who's marrying them is the same Hulk hillbilly guy that played the role that smashed in Dennis O'Hare, Dr. Elias's face with the hammer. The guy who got shot full of arrows, he had his leg cut off and his arm cut off to be formed into human meat by Mama Polk. It's the same guy. Look back, and I dare you to tell me that
I didn't notice that. You did that all by yourself. You noticed that, and that was awesome.
I'm just saying, it looked just like him.
Furthermore, that was a cute wedding. And can I say a quote? I want to say a quote. Evan says to her, Rory says to her, I'm going to love the shit out of you forever. Forever. It was so cute. So now they're back at the Roanoke house. They're the first people that get there, so they get the best room. So they're up there. And he gets a call from LA. They want him to come in and do a screen test, whatever that is. I guess get some lines or whatnot. And it's so cute. He answers the phone.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Some of the writing on the show is really, really, really great.
So basically, after they're doing their thing and they're having this conversation, they go downstairs to start. Evan's videotaping her with his camera phone. And he sees like this weird shadowy figure come across the window, and of course Audrey does not notice, but he does. So they go over for a closer inspection, and out of nowhere, Agnes the butcher in her full-on costume with her what looks like scraggly long hair, smashes the window in with her hatchet.
Can we pause here so I can talk about my other theory?
Pause where the incoming of the group.
Okay, yeah, where they're yelling at each other. Okay, so right here, the first frame you see, you see Rory and shit, what's her name?
Well,
Audrey Tyndall. Audrey Tyndall. You see Rory and Audrey come down the stairs, and they're just fucking around with a cell phone, whatever. But she has her back to the window, and he has his cell phone pointed that way, and there's 2 window panes.
Yep.
One here, one here. This window pane, you see a figure walk by, and I'm going to talk about a theory that I have not seen online yet. This is me. Not bragging or anything, just saying. So the figure that walks by, it's cloaked. It's not a very body forming kind of outfit. Ends at the neck. You can see the jawline of the person. It's a very strong jaw. It's not like this. It's a very straight jawline. Also, there's like a bonnet or short hair that ends right about here. So you see the profile of someone, and jawline, short hair, and the rest. Then the next window pane, which is over here, first window pane's here, next window pane's over here, is blank. And then all of a sudden, wham! You see Kathy Bates come up, Agnes, and she's like, and she busts the glass out with a cleaver, overhand like this. And we all know Kathy Bates, love her. That chiseled jawline did not belong to Kathy Bates.
No.
It did not.
And on top of that, also, we remember seeing her being interviewed, and her hair was so short. But if you look very carefully at that split second, it looks like she has the full-on long hair again, like big time. And
you pointed that out.
It was a split second, but if you look closely, it really does look like the character portrayal more than Agnes's natural hair. So I find it really strange that she would just show up there and start scaring the hell out of people like the way that she did, especially after being served those restraining order papers.
Plus, when we saw her, unless she bought a wig, she had a short cropped hair. So my point is, that initial silhouette did not belong to her. That might be Jessica Lange. She's gonna come back and be the butcher, and I would love that so much. But it would definitely be obviously the first silhouette is different from what we see Agnes, Kathy Bates, the butcher. That's something to consider.
Well, there's a lot of fan theory going on out there too, but let's get back going again here.
Let's get back going again.
After the whole cruise comes popping in after Agnes supposedly, smashes the window. Well, not supposedly, she really did. And they're like, well, Agnes is here. So we end up seeing everybody in the living room talking about how Audrey had an instance with Agnes about how she was like trying to beat in her door because apparently Audrey won this Saturn award and she did not, which is funny because the 911 call that they actually, show is how Audrey is calling and saying that this woman is trying to steal her Saturn. The guy's like, oh, she's trying to steal your car? She's like, no, my award. But then, of course, right after this happens, we see the real Matt and the real Lee come popping in for this whole gathering. And that's when we see Shelby like, wow, okay. And then, of course, Matt's like, what the hell is she doing here kind of look. But still, we end up seeing Shelby talking to Rory and Audrey, who is Evan Peters and Sarah Paulson, talking about how it's great that there was some good that came out of this whole thing. I lost a husband, you gained a husband, and how it's like never too late for love, which, Audrey, Sarah Paulson, ends up taking as like a quip that she is older and Evan Peters, Rory, is obviously younger. And it she kind of gets really defensive about the whole thing, but Lily Ray was
insecure because that's the second time she has mentioned their ages. She actually the third time, because first she said, "How could I get a man like this so young? I trust him to go to Hollywood alone and not be stolen by someone else." And then she gets mad at her for pretty much saying, well, it's never too late for love, but she was actually talking about herself. I don't really think that she meant what Sarah Paulson thought about what she said.
Insinuating, yeah.
Yeah.
But after we get past this, we go jumping to the next shot where Sydney is in the room talking about, here's all these phones that I'm going to give you, but they've basically been disabled because Sydney didn't want them to have cell phones to begin with, so they confiscated all theirs. And they're like, oh, okay, well, you're giving us phones? But he's like, no, the only reason that you have these is so that you can shoot video of your own experience through this whole ordeal. And Sydney starts handing out, like, the whole betting arrangements. And he's like, well, okay, you guys are together. And when he gets to the end, it's like Shelby and Matt together. And Matt's like, well, no, to hell with that. I'm not sleeping in this.
He did that on purpose, just to stir up shit.
No. He says he's going to sleep in the basement. And Sydney, really doesn't give a shit because the entire house has been wired with cameras anyways. Like, there's 4 cameras in every single room of the house, whether it be a hallway, bedroom, bathroom, whatever, which is kind of creepy.
If it's all... the whole house is riddled with cameras. Why would you even try to assign people sleeping spots? He only did that to stir up shit because he's a dick.
No. He also did stir up something big because Shelby obviously wanted to try and reconnect with Matt, which is the whole reason she's here to begin with. And Lee is, like, of course, Matt's guardian in this whole thing because she's like the protective sister, former ex-cop. Yeah, I don't know. That's like an oxymoron. But they end up kind of going on the screen, and Audrey and Rory and Monet, who is Angela Bassett, the one who was playing Lee in the original Roanoke Nightmare, they're all kind of hanging out together now. And they're talking about how it's kind of a joke that they're taking such a serious note about it. And Matt comes walking in, and he's like, oh, that's kind of funny. Well, when exactly were you guys shooting this whole thing? And they're like, well, I think it was around like summertime. He's like, okay, well, why don't you look outside the window? And Evan Peters, Rory's like, ooh, scary. Let's go look out the window.
It's so scary.
And when he looks out the window,
that's important about that is if they shot in summertime, which he later says, well, we shot here for 8 months and nothing happened. Well, it was the middle of summer. You weren't anywhere near a blood moon, and
which is
guess
exactly what they see when he looks out the window.
What's happening now? Bam, there's the blood moon.
And it's creepy shit because Matt, he knows what's going on. He was there, and even though they take it so lightly, which kind of makes you start wondering that how much truth did they put into this Roanoke Nightmare story? And that's when we get this quick flash saying over the next 3 days during the blood moon, every participant in the series died under mysterious circumstances, except for one.
Everybody dies except one person.
The whole reason that this is still going on is the fact that this is the found footage that they basically constructed from what happened while this whole ordeal went down. Now, this is where things get really fucking cool, and I wanted to point this out because we see Rory and Audrey, Evan Peters and Sarah Paulson out in the hot tub, the same hot tub that we saw Shelby and Matt's character in when they were telling the story in the very beginning of My Roanoke Nightmare. And they're just kind of hanging out. But if you look very closely, you'll notice that they're just hanging out there. There's nothing exotic, no oils or candles or anything like that, okay? You have to pay very close attention to this, but I'm telling you, you'll notice it. If you pay close attention, there's nothing there at first. So that put on the back burner for a hot second. Remember, we're going to go back into the house and we see Monet, who is Angela Bassett, playing Lee's character, bust out a big-ass bottle of vodka, and she starts pounding booze. And she ends up going downstairs and grabbing herself some beer munchies. But as she's going down there, we see, out of nowhere, Mason Lee's husband, like scorched to a crisp, covered in freaking if there is such a thing, 5th-degree burns.
Extra crispy. He's
And
so crispy.
And he looks at the camera, breaks the fourth wall, like, because that basically is a camera that is set in the house. Then we bounce back out to the hot tub again, and we see Audrey, Sarah Paulson, leave the hot tub. Still, no light besides what's coming from the house. She walks back into the house in the towel, and we see Lily Rabe, Shelby, kind of peering around the corner, watching Lee making sandwiches in the kitchen. She's basically trying to see if she can get around Lee so that she can have a conversation with Matt without this, Judge Mills Lane, let's get it on action coming into the whole conversation. So she managed to slip by Lee and gets down in the basement where Matt is kind of sulking in the corner. And she's basically trying to reach out to him to try and save her marriage. And
she loves him.
She really does. But, I mean, if you look closely behind Shelby, as she's coming down to the basement, you see this weird furnace device. And I've come to believe that when it comes to Ryan Murphy and American Horror Story, not any little tiny detail is not minuscule, if that is an oxymoron. But if you look at the furnace behind Shelby, she's standing there talking to Matt, you'll notice that the door to the left of her looks almost like a 6 in the handle. And then if you look to the door to the right, it looks like a question mark, which I think was interesting because the whole season 6 was based on this red 6 and a question mark forming out of it, which I think is...
Oh, which was also in the sheriff's office during Freak Show. There was a 6 with a question mark on one of his posters in the wall. You miss it unless you're looking for it.
Totally missed it.
Yeah, that was. Remind me later. I'll show you. But yeah, in Freak Show that was featured as well.
So we go back to Monet in the kitchen, grabbing her beer munchies, and she sees Lee in there eating something, and Lee, kind of being the former cop that she was, smells the booze, the vodka on Monet, and she starts trying to relate to her in a way because, strangely enough, she is never related to this character who portrayed her. She says, I never thought in the world we had anything in common, but that's where Monet is like, well, we don't have anything in common at all. I think you are just a murderous bitch, and I'm an alcoholic because of you. And that's where things get kind of intense with her, but Lee basically just says, well, screw you. She throws her plate in the sink and walks away and go back down into Matt and Shelby again. And this is where things get a little bit crazy as far as the realism goes. We hear a big bang at the front door, and Shelby goes up and answers it. And lo and behold, we see Cuba Gooding Jr., Dominic, who played Matt in the Roanoke Nightmare, at the door. And which is crazy because Shelby was promised by Sydney that he wouldn't be there. All of a sudden, Matt's standing there, and there's Dominic, and he knows that this is the guy that ended up screwing his wife in that weekend fling. We go to the booth, and he's like, it's finally nice to meet Dominic. And then we see a nice little mini brawl, and we see Evan Peters sitting. I'm going to pause right here. You see Evan getting out of the hot tub? Pause. If you look very closely behind Evan as he's getting up, if all you girls out there weren't paying attention to his, like, boxer short line, look behind him very carefully. There are a series of about a dozen different torches that are just kind of, like, fluttering. There are no candles next to that hot tub. Look very carefully.
I didn't notice that.
That is the Roanoke crew. Start back up.
Oh, guess I'm just a typical girl that didn't notice that.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally blaming you because you were sweating Evan Peters. So
I'm
we go back
sweating Evan Peters, not you.
Well,
Me.
Anyways, Evan Peters is in the house now, and he's trying to break up this fight between Dominic and Matt, and that's where we see Shelby walk up to one of the cameras and basically give her feelings towards Sydney. And I quote, F you, you mother effer. And then we bounce up to the upstairs and we see where Audrey, Sarah Paulson's character, was taking a shower after she got out of the hot tub. And we hear the door kind of creak open and we see it open at the same time. And, of course, she thinks that it's Rory. Evan Peters coming in to have a little hokey pokey or something. I don't know. But then we're down and we see Matt and Lee talking to each other about this whole ordeal that was going on. Back up to Audrey again. And this is one of my favorite things about horror is that the mirror is so steamed up. She goes and she wipes it off, looks behind her, and guess what? There's Mr. Piggy Man hanging out, just staring at her. So she goes screaming and running downstairs. Of course, everybody comes running because she's screaming, and we're like wondering what the hell's going on. And so Rory greets her on the stairs, and she's like, "What's happening? Oh my God, Sydney sent somebody up to scare me. That was somebody in a pig mask waiting for me when I got out of the shower."
Sydney did it! Sydney! Ah!
Yeah, that's pretty creepy. You gotta admit. And having a pig dude standing there as you're getting out of the shower, that's pretty fucking creepy. So Rory, being Mr. Chivalrous that he is, goes running upstairs, and he's going to try and find out what's going on. And here's something really cute that I think Miss Melody pointed out, is that even though Audrey is so distressed, she sees Dominic. She's like, "Oh, hi, Dominic. When did you get here?"
Hi, Dominic. Oh, where did you get here? Please hug me. Oh.
So Evan's upstairs, and he's tossing the room. He's looking around, looking under the bed, looking in the closets. And this is where I have to say a big fuck you to Ryan Murphy with his casting or whatever it is. Who is in charge of this? Evan is searching the closets. He gets to the last one. He opens it up. He's like a big fat F you to Sydney again for scaring his wife. And as he closes the closet, there's a big scary ring-style looking nurse outfit standing to the left. And another one comes running up and slashes his throat. We see Evan get like straight cut down, knifed out hard. We're talking like a good 10 stab wounds right there on the spot.
Bye, Rory.
What the hell, man?
Bye.
So we go back down into Matt. We see him kind of wandering through the house a little bit. He walks into this room, and he's kind of creeping. He looks up at the wall. And if we remember watching Roanoke to begin with, these two nurses, their supposed story was murder written on the wall in spray paint or blood or whatever it may be, but they never finished it because the Roanoke colony killed them. And as Matt looks up, he sees the whole word murder written.
Finally, it's complete. It's completed.
And that's where a light bulb goes off. We're like, Rory. But anyways, we go into the kitchen, and everybody's talking, and we're talking about how Sydney's a douchebag and scaring things. And Matt comes walking in, and he says, R is for Rory. And that's where everybody kind of looks at him, and Audrey's like looking around like, where is Rory? And that's where we end up getting our cutscene. And I got to admit, Ryan really, he delivered at the end this time. He was telling us that this is going to be the episode that makes it crazy, that's going to turn the whole thing. And this is what makes it good, is because now we're in the real world. We realize the whole first 5 episodes of My Roanoke Nightmare were basically just a reality TV kind of skit to make us thrilled into ghosts. And now episode 5 is the realism behind it, the real world. And this is where it starts getting really freaking crazy, because we saw the pig fetus ring. We saw the guy getting his head hacked off with the chainsaw, supposedly by himself. And like I said, if you look very closely and you go back and you watch the episode, you will notice there's no candles at all around that freaking hot tub. And then all of a sudden, just as the craziness hits in the house, you see Evan jump out of that hot tub, and there's all of these little flames flickering in the background. That was not candles. Those
so
are people.
You think the colony is coming back to the house again? For
it's
the
like
next
Matt
episode?
said, we weren't even at a full moon yet. We weren't at the full blood moon yet. It was the beginning stages of the full blood moon. And that's where they gradually start getting more chaotic and they cause more havoc. And it's not until it gets full that supposedly that the butcher wants to consecrate the land with all the fresh blood. But that's, like I said, I mean, there's a lot of speculation now because we're basically breaking into a whole new segment of the season. It was like the first 5 episodes wrapped themselves up, and that was the end of the season. And now we're kind of like jumping into another version of a new season almost. That's what makes it that much more interesting. And I am pissed at Ryan Murphy for taking Evan away from us so goddamn quick yet again.
He'll be back. He'll be back for the 3rd time.
Well, supposedly, if it's like the other instances, like hotel or murder house, if you die on these grounds, then your spirit is kind of trapped there forever. So if he is going to come back, then I have a feeling he's going to come back as a spirit who's going to end up helping the people who are still trapped there. But it's such a great, great episode because it was all that we were hoping for with American Horror Story with that great twist. And it really delivered. And I have a feeling that Kathy Bates as Agnes is really going to come step up to the plate and something big is going to happen. And when I was watching this episode, as I was kind of like thinking American Horror Story style, you would think that Kathy Bates being influenced and acting the way that she did, getting this paranoid schizophrenia, it's not just an character's role getting sucked into it. I'm thinking that it's the Roanoke County's ghost magic
Their
or whatever
influence.
you want to call it. Their influence is stretched beyond that. And the
What
fact
if
that
she's
she was
a
even
descendant
there
somehow?
on that property kind of like it made an imprint on her. So maybe if this butcher
Or she
character
could be
is really
possessed.
real, then maybe they decided to imprint on Kathy Bates. But if this whole rumor that Jessica Lange really is going to come back, maybe that could be kind of cut out by that whole thing. Because
Well, there could be a showdown between Agnes, who really thinks that she is the butcher and likes to portray the butcher so well. What if she comes face to face with the real butcher portrayed by Jessica Lange?
maybe she'll end up getting recruited to end up being like a sergeant or a left-hand man of the real butcher in the county. Who knows?
No, she would fucking get murked. Lang would kill her. The real butcher would kill any cheap imitation. She would kill her.
Well, let's close off on a really, really good point too, because we've actually already been told through many different sources that Thaisa Farmiga and Finn Whitrock are coming back again. And as exciting as that sounds, I could give a shit about Finn Whitrock. We've seen him plenty.
How could you say that?
We haven't seen Thaisa since season 3.
Yes, I love her, but still, that's fucking Dandy Mod. He's gonna come back and he's the most fucked up character ever. How can you not give a shit about the most fucked up character ever?
We already got a shout out to him in Hotel Double Time. He played 2 different characters in Hotel. And we got a shout out to him in this season as Evan Peters playing his earliest descendant who built this house, Edward Philippe Mott. Okay, we've got enough shout outs to the Mott family. Let's go
to. There was one shout out to the Mott family. There was the one brief thing where they said, "Oh, the Mott family died in 1952." Last of their line. That was dandy, and I'm really, really excited to see Finn back. I want him. I have no idea who he could be, or what he could portray, or what he could bring to the series, or season. But I'm excited about it. I'm more excited about Thaisa because obviously
what the hell she's going to do. And of course, if you've been reading into all the fan theory, we've been hearing rumors about how Lady Gaga's mysterious disappearance from the season recently is going to come back, and she's going to be playing one of the original Supremes, which is the shout out back to Coven, which I think would be great because, like I said, the last time we saw Thaisa was in Coven.
Actually, can I clear up that statement a little bit? Supposedly, Ryan Murphy came out and said that the Scavenge, the Woods Witch from this season, is the original Supreme. So
wait a minute.
what I'm thinking is,
but that actually interjects a little bit, though. If you look back at the Salem witch trials, I think we were talking about this because we actually had the theory that the Scavenge, whatever the hell, that she was the original Supreme, but it doesn't make any sense because the original Salem witch trials happened before she showed up, because they actually said that she sailed over on a ship as a stowaway, and I think it was 1792.
1692, and we actually checked the storyline. Storyline checks out. It's a perfect time period for her to come to power as a new age, which at that time, 1692, was the Salem witch trials, and it was like 1692 to 1693 when everything went down with Lady Gaga's character when she was captured and boarded on the ship. And
so it was not the 1700s. It was the 1600s that she actually sailed over.
1690.
I'm just making sure because I thought it was the late 1700s that she ended up sailing over. Well, props to you. So maybe that does hold that does hold a lot of water then, because if she did actually come around then that would be right about the time.
The timeline checks out totally. So Scavenge, Lady Gaga is the first Supreme. So all the following Supremes get their power from there. And there's another rumor that not necessarily season 7, but 7, 8, 9, one of the seasons is going to be Return to Coven. So they are definitely going back to Coven. They have already confirmed Return to Coven, in quotes. Ryan Murphy confirmed that. I read that earlier today. Also, Lady Gaga might portray a Supreme in a future season. So that would be crazy to both portray the Scavenge as the first Supreme and then portray a Supreme later on in a different season.
That'd be interesting.
I love that.
Big shout out to Coven and Hotel. We saw Queenie show up and how she was going to be a contestant on The Price is Right, but we're not going to get too deep into that. We're going to come back and recap a lot of this stuff at a later time after we get past Roanoke Nightmare. And then after that, we might even dive into something new and interesting with Westworld. But always, we give a big
I would love to do Westworld.
We give our big shout out to our man Tiny for making this all happen and bringing us all together. We definitely do enjoy recapping these episodes. So please leave your comments. Get back in touch with us. Let us know if there's something that we've not discussed. If we missed something. There's a lot of people out there that will say you totally overlooked this point. And believe me, I want to know everything that happens with this series. I am
Same here. There is a lot to overlook, and there are a lot of theories out there. I've read things online from fans that I have not even thought of before. Give us a hint. Tell us what you think. We would love to elaborate on any of your theories.
Comment about Melody's cat that she has behind her this whole episode. Or comment about the fact that you hate how much I use my hands when I talk.
Thanks, Margie. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Eric. This was my birthday present. He's so cute. Look, he's got a little butthole, too.
Anyways, thank you for joining us on American Horror Story, The Creep, courtesy of Monkey Caviar. We will be back next Thursday night at 9 p.m. in the hopes that Comporium and our internet or some crazy fucked up Russian hacker doesn't screw with everything.
Don't blame the Russians. You're going to start a war.
Well, the great thing about the internet is that it gives every person a voice. So, yeah. If I'm going to blame Russia, then I'm going to blame Donald Trump too, because he kind of asked Russia to do things. Nope, we're not going to get into public debate. Not politics. You guys have a good night. Come back and join us at 9 p.m. Thursday night for the next episode recap of American Horror Story, My 3 Days in Hell.
Yeah.